The drama surrounding the Chicago Sky didn't begin with a box score. It began with a sentence. "I'm not settling for the same we did this year." Angel Reese said it to the Chicago Tribune, and the floor tilted. This wasn't a stray frustration after a loss. It was a manifesto aired in public, followed by the kicker. "We have to get good players. We have to get great players. We can't settle for what we have this year." In one breath, Ree didn't just challenge a front office. She dragged her own locker room into the blast radius. You could feel the ripples. Names were suddenly more than names. They were crosshairs. Rachel Bannum, Haley Vanlith, Courtney Vanderloot. Veterans and role players who kept showing up, taping ankles, grinding through film sessions, became targets in a roster overhaul she was openly calling for. Vanderloot, two-time champion, five-time All-Star, two-time All-WNBA first team, was reduced to a number in someone else's spreadsheet. "We can't rely on Courtney to come back at that age that she's at," Ree said, adding they needed someone probably a little younger with some experience. A legend dismissed. Here's the context that made it sting. The Sky had already reshaped the franchise around Ree. They traded the number 3 overall pick, Sonia Citron, for Ariel Atkins, an organizational bet that winning now meant building around their supposed franchise piece. Atkins arrived with her reputation intact, walked into a room that should have been aligning around an anchor, and instead found herself smoothing over a fire she didn't start. She defended teammates. She spoke about collective improvement. She backed the club when the front office drew a line. It was the kind of poise that makes a statement without theatrics. Ree chose theatrics. The quotes came while her own season was becoming a stack of red flags. The 8th technical foul that triggered an automatic one-game suspension after contact to Aaliyah Edwards' head in a rebound battle. The conduct detrimental team suspension that pulled her from the first half against Las Vegas on September 7th. The absences that mounted under a vague day-to-day back injury. She didn't travel. She didn't sit with the bench. Meanwhile, the turnover column told its own truth, leading the league in cough-ups despite missing weeks. Most players need a summer of minutes to rack up that kind of waste. Ree did it in fragments. The locker room code is simple. You don't throw teammates under the bus in public. If you do, you better be spotless. Ree wasn't. And the responses arrived. Rachel Bannum didn't grandstand. She withdrew the oxygen. "I think I just don't really care. I'm so over all this," she said, the fatigue obvious. That wasn't indifference. It was the sound of a veteran refusing to let someone else's noise define her season. Courtney Vanderloot didn't allow her legacy to become a punchline. Asked if she'd be back, she didn't hedge. "Oh, absolutely. Contrary to what people say or think, my age is actually not a factor. I am coming back. I'm going to come back better than ever." One sentence, steady as a layup off glass, and a reminder that resumes matter. Ariel Atkins faced the microphones and stood with the room. The staff labeled Ree's discipline a top-down decision. Ownership handled it how they see fit. "They have full support from our team. No drama, just alignment." Then came the shift you only notice if you're paying attention. How a team moves when the noise walks out of the tunnel. Without Ree, the ball didn't stick. The floor spaced. The offense exhaled. Reports said the Sky looked sharper, cleaner, less chaotic. The film whispered what the box score later confirmed. Sometimes absence is the loudest statement. Inside, a players-only meeting did the rest. They looked at one another and decided they didn't have to carry a target someone else had strapped to their backs. The front office followed with its own punctuation. Because of statements detrimental to the team made by Angel Ree during league-mandated media, she will not play in the first half. The language was cold, corporate, unambiguous. Safety, respect, accountability. In other words, the franchise's priorities didn't start with a brand. They started with the room. This is where leadership, real, comes into focus by comparison. Across the division, Caitlin Clark spent her own season fighting her body and still managed to show up. When she couldn't play, she stood on the sideline and poured into teammates. She pointed out sets during timeouts, clapped through droughts, and fed confidence when the Fever needed it most. While Indiana shuffled hardship signings and leaned on next woman up resilience, her presence didn't vanish into the trainer's room. It stayed courtside, loud enough to matter without a single three leaving her fingers. The contrast wrote itself. One player demanded better teammates, led the league in turnovers, and answered whistles with more whistles. Another celebrated small wins, amplified co-stars, and kept building a culture even when she was out of uniform. You don't have to choose sides to see the effect. Fans did the math. So did locker rooms. Back in Chicago, the list kept growing. Rhee's 8th tech was the one the league couldn't ignore. The conduct detrimental tag was the one the Sky wouldn't. Somewhere between the public roster autopsy and the missed road trips, the equation flipped. It wasn't Chicago holding Angel Rhee back. It was Angel Rhee pulling Chicago down. The most telling moment might have been the quietest. The team's appeal to get one of her technicals rescinded. Picture it. An organization devoting time and capital to reduce a star's self-inflicted suspension clock. That's not a tactic. It's triage. And the day the club finally suspended her internally, the message went to two audiences at once. To veterans like Vanderloot and Banham, that their work and reputations would be protected. To a locker room stretched thin by drama, that the standard still meant something. None of this rewrites the fact that Rhee can rebound like a wrecking ball, or that her best self is powerful enough to swing games. But a franchise player is more than one elite skill. It's how you fill the space between possessions, how you talk about the people you share them with, how you carry the room when your shot won't fall, when your back aches, when the camera isn't on. That's the gap Chicago couldn't bridge. Meanwhile, in Indianapolis, the Fever kept stacking something steadier. Aaliyah Boston set records while refusing to call them feats. Kelsey Mitchell found fire in tight fourth quarters, and a rotating cast turned a season of hardship contracts into a playoff pulse. "We ain't done yet," the huddle said after. They clinched. Nobody had to ask who they meant by we. The had weight. Maybe that's the lesson hiding in a week of headlines. Talent draws a crowd. Trust keeps it. The Sky didn't need a new mirror. They needed someone willing to stand in front of the old one and tell the truth. The cracks Angel Rhee kept pointing at were reflections. Technical fouls a beat late, turnovers a step early, quotes that landed like elbows. Her teammates pushed back, the front office drew a border, and the team, when allowed to breathe, looked more like a team. At this point, it's not about whether the brand still fits. It's about whether the room can. The Sky may decide the cost of the constant storm isn't worth another season. And if they do, it won't be because of one game, one quote, or one suspension. It will be because the sum of them told a story that basketball people hear clearly. Winning doesn't tolerate passengers who punch holes in the boat, so what now? Maybe the ending is already written. Maybe it isn't. But the league, the fans, and the locker rooms have long memories. They remember who lifted, who fractured, who showed up, who vanished. And in a sport that exposes character 2 hours at a time, that ledger is the only one that lasts. Should the Sky move on from Rhee, or can a fractured room be mended with accountability and time? Whose response? Banham's exhaustion, Vanderloot's resolve, Atkins' steadiness, told you the most about where Chicago is headed. Drop your take below, and if you want more deep dive stories like this, like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss what's next.